out of Reddit, and by just copying their, redesigning their front end. And do you think like there's a product is it, I don't really mind if it's good or bad, but the use of it is, it's useful in a way. We don't really disagree with that. And someone else is making money out of it by just kind of being as a middleman to that product.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's a business.
Yes. And the part I still don't know is that if the other companies, other than this middle persons, do they pay a lot as much of these companies?
I think Enes raised a very interesting question.
I'm a company who have a subreddit on Reddit. I'm like a common company that sells shoes, for example. And I own a subreddit page that I moderate. Do I need to pay that much?
Well, that's not how it exactly works. You don't
pay when you have a subreddit, Enes.
Yeah.
I developed an API to access, to track down the problems my customers are posting on subreddit, and I had set an API.
You use API to develop a program is the right way of saying it, but A+ for effort. But I think Enes raises a very interesting question, because as far as I can tell, when you run a website, when you host a website like Reddit, your primary source of revenue would be the ad from customer interaction, like people entering the site and you show them some ads. So when somebody comes and builds a other alternative front end with your server, and when they are not paying for it, what they're essentially doing is they are stealing your revenue. So it is more similar to bootleg movie DVDs in that sense.
Maybe. But again, the way it is handled is like, that is a reasonable thing to ask again, and that is a reasonable reason to price your API. But the way the ownership has handled it is, it is very clear that it's not a situation of where we need to like get the revenue from this because this is the revenue we're losing, and more we are trying to do whatever we can to shut down any possible middleman or like I'm not going to call it competition because it's still the same website, but we're going to shut down this other ways of reaching this website, because like with a transition period of like a month and this pricing model, they like any reasonable person knows no third-party app is going to be able to afford this.
Yep.
You are absolutely wrong when you say this isn't competition. In fact, this is as harsh a competition can get, because imagine Reddit is an island, and Reddit Island's only source of revenue is building a bridge and getting money from people who want to cross the bridge. What they're essentially doing is building other bridges to the same island and getting people who use their bridge's money. So what they are indeed doing is taking revenue from Reddit. So it is competition.
Well, the reason I don't know if you could call it competition is because it is the same website. But yeah, with the analogy you're making, yeah, that is more apt. And again, I don't think it is unreasonable for a website, especially as big as Reddit, to price their API. It's more like how they handle things, and especially how they handle things after, which is more interesting to me.
I want to give numbers to explain the situation.
I love those. I'm a mathematician.
According to the post by Apollo's developer, when they first announced the expected price of this API, the approximate cost per user per month was $0.12 per user per month. But when they actually announced the price, it was $2.5 per month per user.
Whoa, gee.
As a person who tried to do mobile game ad revenue supported business model, I can say it is almost impossible to squeeze $2.5 out of a user per month. Like you would need to be an insanely popular product with an insanely good business model in order to be able to do that.
Also, most of these third-party apps are free to use with premium features that come with a purchase or a subscription.
True.
In example of Apollo, it was a one-time purchase.
Which is great.
But
One-time purchase is like this is its own topic.
Yeah.
Like maybe we can talk about monetization models in detail later.
I would love to talk about it.
Yeah.
No app in their right mind would be a one-time purchase.
Apollo was made 10 years ago, so
I mean, to our dear listeners, I want to ask them to remind us on our social media pages, hopefully in Reddit soon, to remind us to make an episode about this issue.
Oh yes, you can find our social media from show notes.
Another thing, we can discuss how it is irresponsible to build a business on other people's business, like where your revenue is solely dependent on the main app. This was discussed both for Twitter third-party apps and Reddit third-party apps.
I mean, that's a good discussion, but also I feel like we are in a glass house on that topic because we are also depending on a lot of other things discussing this right now.
It is impossible to not rely on other people's businesses for your business. The extent of dependency is the only thing that you can adjust. Like there's a technology stack is the concept. Like on the lowest possible point, there are people who are building scripts and third-party applications for first-party things, and they obviously depend on the thing. And then first-party depends on the protocols and systems they use. And then the people who build those systems depend on the people who manufacture their components, and it goes on.
And I mean, for every process, at some point, if the process gets big enough, there are middlemen squeezing in within that process to make it faster or make it more efficient. So it grows and grows and grows.
Nobody forces people to not use the regular Reddit front page.
But Reddit itself by making it bad.
This isn't the case for like this isn't something that usually happens with other websites. Like usually people either use a website or don't use a website. People don't. I want to access the content of this website so much, but I don't want to do this using their...
Actually, I do know people who do not want to be on Twitter that used to use. I think it is now not very possible. But I know people who did not want to be on Twitter because why would you be on Twitter? Except if you're us, please follow us on Twitter. That use like Twitter API to follow, quote unquote, follow other like Twitter accounts without having an account there. So like I guess that's somewhat similar, but I think Reddit is unique on this because again, it was built as like a forum of forums, and now it's trying to be in recent years becoming like more social media. So it's like a hybrid in the middle, and I think this is probably like a big stepping stone in that because this is clearly them trying to make people use only their own front end.
Yeah,
that's, I mean, like I said, since the main source of revenue would be bridge taxes for Reddit Islands, I completely understand why they want to demolish or purchase other bridges. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. But I mean, obviously, what I would have done is I would want a percentage of their revenue instead of charging them a direct sum.
I think it's more that how they have handled things instead of like what their wants were.
I
Because
want to.
that is the thing that led to this like blackout thing, which is again still continuing in some subreddits. It was meant to be a 2-day thing, but they doubled down on it. So
Could you quickly explain what was the blackout thing and the main reason and who are doing it?
blackout thing was after like most of the third-party devs came forward and said, well, this is like our conversations with Reddit. We have been like given zero transparency. We have been given as little like leniency in transition as possible. So we're going to have to stop these services a lot of people use because it's just not going to be possible. So then after that, ownership of Reddit just tried to double down and like silence as much as possible and fire back on them. So user base and most of the user base like wanted to do a boycott of sorts, which is like the blackout, where because subreddits in the Reddit are mostly run by users, they said we're going to go private mode, so no one can see the subreddit or visit the subreddit for 2 days to like send a message to Reddit in terms of cutting their traffic as users. So that was the blackout part. And like a lot of subreddits with millions of subscribers have joined in on that, and some of them still like stay private to this day, which was like that was 12 to 14 of June. So that was like 12 days ago now.
I also want to add some of the subreddits did something different after the blackout. Instead of continuing the blackout, they moved to creative ideas, like only posting John Oliver pictures or
so basically trolling.
Kind of like trolling. Well, one of the subreddits I follow said we're gonna open it back up because there is useful information there here, and we don't want to cut people off that, but we also want to like at least continue sending a message, so there are not going to be any new posts until blackout ends. So like you can visit subreddit now; it's no longer private, but you can't make new posts.
I also have another example, but I forgot about it. I'm gonna find it.
Okay.
Can I quickly raise a speculation so that you may comment on it? You can comment on it if you want.
Of course.
I think there is this important distinction between the way Twitter handled this and the way Reddit is handling this. And that boils down to user base. Because it is my prejudice that the sort of people who would use Reddit more actively is also the sort of people who would want internet to be more decentralized.
Sure. I agree.
Whereas the people who would use like other social media pages like Twitter and Facebook, they are more like, I want to just enter and look at what the other grandmothers are doing or other politicians are doing. So it is more Facebook and Twitter respectively. So it is more...
Can I add another speculation or another layer to this as well? And I feel like after Twitter has become Elon Musk basically and change, there was a lot of like a user migration happening in digital sphere. So a lot of Twitter users became more heavy Reddit users. I feel like, I don't know what you guys think. So that will be like another layer I would like to add to the user profile of the Reddit.
So there are already people whose mouth was burned by the milk, you are saying. When the yogurt appears, they are immediately alarmed.
But funny you mentioned milk. I remembered my example. There's a subreddit called Aged Like Milk. This page usually posts stuff that's meaning of the idiom aged like milk. Like someone says something and give an example, please.
When you were, or like you were in 2010 YouTuber and making racist jokes, and now the whole content is aged like milk, basically.
Yes, exactly. But now they are only posting cheeses.
That's funny.
Also, that wasn't the regular content. I just she threw a link to the and I was looking at it and I was seeing all old cheeses that are moldy, and I was thinking, I mean, I guess fun, but that makes a lot of sense. I should have listened to you instead of doing what I did.
Yeah, but building upon that, like the cheese and the aging like milk, the other thing that I kind of saw that overall while I was watching YouTube videos about this, basically, that people really compared it with Tumblr and what happened to Tumblr. But I really don't know what happened to Tumblr besides that it died out. So maybe you guys can explain me what's the connection there.
No, it didn't die out. Anyway. Well, what happened to Tumblr was my favorite company on the world, Apple, said, hey, you have a lot of not safe for work material on your app, and we don't like that here on App Store, so we're going to take it down.
Okay.
So Tumblr said, okay, I guess we're gonna have to ban...
But also, they sold Tumblr. That also happened.
Well, yeah, it changed hands. Tumblr changed hands a lot of times, but like that was the main proponent of it, because like Apple said, like, we are gonna take your app off App Store. It's just gonna be gone. So Tumblr said, okay, so I guess we're just gonna have to ban porn, which they were already like wanting to do. I think the new management, which was stupid because it was literally half of their content, but you know, more power to them. The issue was that the main issue was that they went ahead with it despite the protests, which like made the numbers go down and made Tumblr a much smaller website for sure. But now it's like more on a path of recovery with another getting sold again, and now it is like kinda allowed again. It's kind of nebulous, but yeah, that was the case there.
So basically, upper management's moderation over the website is the commonality between these two cases.
And I mean, that is the most interesting part to me, because like internet is big, but, and not to sound like a boomer, but it was kind of bigger when we were younger, I feel, because there were not like 4 websites you would alternate between. Everything was more in its own space, and now all of it kind of meshes together in this like more public websites. And that is the kind of discussion here is like, yes, if you own a website, you have the final word on it. But if you own a website used by millions of people that use it like a public forum, then where does those lines like start to blur?
I mean, here's the thing, you know, as you know, I have an engineering and mathematics background, so I'm gonna talk about sociology. There's a concept brought by, who was it? I don't remember, but you know about warre, right? Like WARRE, I think.
I am not sure.
It's about, you start from a society where there is no state, there is no autonomy of any sort, like no laws of the society. Then people start to form small groups within which they, like small communities, and they compete with each other. Then it becomes some very large, powerful organizations emerge from this initial stage. And then finally, some group destroys all its opponents and consolidates the monopoly over violence, and that becomes the state. That's the essential progression of societies. I want to say Hobbes, but I'm not entirely certain. That's what this person, actually, let me quickly.
Could be Hobbes. I'm not sure.
You should look before spreading misinformation on the internet.
It is not misinformation. What I said is true. It's just I don't remember the guy. Anyway,
Proper citations.
okay, I'm gonna find it in a moment. I wasn't able to find it quickly, so let me move back to my point.
You should
You're
do,
right.
while you're
Back
doing the editing, you should find it later, make it like a one sound bite, and put it in there as if you found it.
back at the days of our, I can't say my youth.
Wild west
per se.
of internet.
My internet usage began in 2010s, but I read that on the earlier days of internet, just like you said, there were a large number of small internet communities, and then they started merging into like some of them outcompeted the others, and now there are these huge websites. Like Twitter is huge, Facebook is huge. Twitter is in fact so huge that when Twitter started to change, people either migrated to Mastodon, which is a thing that I still, after months and months of trying, I still don't understand anything about it. Or Reddit, which is what we are discussing right now. Like, you would expect somebody to say, "Oh, I am the new Twitter. Come and tweet here." Like you say, Twitter.
There is Blue Sky, I believe, made by the guy who.
But they are closed. You need an invite.
Yeah, in Blue Sky, you need an invite. It's made by the guy who made Twitter, I believe. But okay, that's a tangent.
So, but you see my point. When Twitter says, "I am gonna change everything," you have no place to go. You have no place to run away. Like, if your local doner store says, "I am only gonna sell vegetable from now on," you can go to the doner store next door. That's not so with the internet. And I think because low street websites like doner manufacturers, these type of problems can very easily emerge, because nobody would object if a doner seller starts selling turnips instead of doner.
Yeah.
But everybody objects when Twitter does something different, because they are not easily replaceable and laws don't protect people. So it is more of is Twitter a community service type of discussion?
Yeah.
Similarly, is Reddit a community service?
Yeah, and it's Reddit's history kind of started that way too. I think one of the co-founders was supporting that idea, and I'm not fully sure about the whole story, but it ends in a bad note, basically, where the whole idea of like free speech, right? I think that whole conversation is for that reason. Like, when they promote free speech because free speech indicates that it's a community service. In a way, I don't know what you guys think, but
that is necessarily true.
I mean, free speech is a very wrong concept to raise here, because they aren't cutting free speech. What they are cutting is people who are earning money based on their work. Like, I'm not saying Reddit is right and people are wrong. I understand the problem.
Well, they're cutting free speech in the sense that they're definitely trying to like hush down any criticism, but that's the other side of the topic. That's not the beginning of the topic.
True.
Like, people who don't want their opponents to speak isn't cutting free speech. It is cutting free speech when a third moderation does this.
Yes.
Like, if you start talking and I start yelling so that you can't talk anymore, that's not cutting your free speech. The people tend to misunderstand this. Like this discussion has very little to do with free speech. This discussion, as far as I can tell, is more about internet ownership, like who owns the content generated and how much right does a person have in charging, and what are the regulations in price. Like, because back to the doner example, if I say as a doner place, instead of selling turnips, I am selling doner for 5 times the price, then again you can go to the guy next door. But when Reddit says, I am the only Reddit in the world and I am gonna start charging exorbitant fees to my services, then you can't go to the Reddit store next door.
I mean, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Because this is like how we started, like as a podcast, like as a social media tool, we do want to be on Reddit because Reddit is big. So when the website is, and it's not even just like about the pricing, but it's just in Twitter's case, for example, the changes to algorithm and changes to how the website is managed. Like, these are things that affect people down the line, like a tech stack, but in a more community kind of way, because there are people whose lives depend a lot on their engagement on Twitter or other social media websites. So the discussion is centered around a lot that too. I agree.
I want to add that when we ask the question, who owns the content, we can also say that this is still all fallbacks from 2018's apocalypse.
No, that's.
I don't know what that is either. I am a
Yeah.
terrific technology podcaster.
Wow, wait, that's a throwback.
Remember the time YouTube? I did a presentation on apocalypse, but I don't remember the details.
I don't even remember what I ate for dinner 1 week ago, so I don't remember. I am a Markov chain. I only remember my last state.
As far as I remember, YouTube was demonetizing every little thing that finds
No,
on videos. Like, if they found something against their rules, even in a small extent, they were demonetizing the videos, YouTube videos, and it was the Apocalypse. What was the name? Apocalypse.
Apocalypse. Well, the root of it
Is
was
it the time where PewDiePie got demonetized?
Yes. It was that time. It was like caused by companies starting to pull their ads, so YouTube like doubled down on like controlling videos and whether they could be like monetized or not. But they did it in a way that like even in the like I don't know what we call innocent channels, even in the family friendly channels, that led to a lot of like revenue loss, like half down the revenue.
I think the principal problem here is internet users act like it is the company's responsibility, the companies that keep the websites, the big websites, responsibility to provide a better service to their customers. That's not the case. The only priority for a company on internet that hosts websites is making more profits. So if they can make more profits,
yes,
they would sell out in fact, they are legally obliged to sell out their customers in such a scenario, because most of these companies are run by big boards of people, and most of these boards have fiduciary duty. What fiduciary duty means is, if you make a decision that harms the company, you are legally responsible for that. So essentially, the companies big technology companies are not like you and me putting up this passion project and people coming here to interact. Like, it isn't some fun little knick-knack shop. What it is it is very, very rich people making decisions, and those decisions are legally mandated to be profitable to the company.
Yeah, but that is where the point you brought up earlier comes up, isn't it? Because that is what they're legally mandated to do. But where the law doesn't catch up is when these things get too big, you know, like Twitter, like Reddit.
I completely agree.
So that is where the clash comes from. Like, no one is asking, well, I mean, I'm not going to say no one is asking, but no one is expecting a company to just give up on their profits.
Yep.
And just be like, okay, have it your way, etc. But at some point, if you're like holding the key to these big like internet kingdoms, at some point you have to also like bear some responsibility.
I mean, you can't though, because that's the whole point. Like, if you have a hosting website, which is, by the way, kind of similar to what Reddit is, it is like state achieves monopoly over violence by using violence directly to everybody who opposes that monopoly.
Yes.
if you go to a website that isn't Twitter, Twitter can't just say, no, you are not entering that website, you are coming to Twitter instead.
Well, no, that's not what I meant in terms of responsibility.
No. Listen, the monopoly is not attainable via websites in the same way that violence monopoly is attained by states. So there's a bit of a problem because Twitter and Facebook and Reddit, like big websites, they aren't really doner stores and they aren't really states. They are somewhere in between. And that in-betweenness creates a sort of expectation chaos from the people involved. Like, you don't know whether you should treat Twitter like a public square,
Yes.
Reddit like a public square, or a doner shop. Because it is neither of those things.
Fully, like, yeah, you can't just treat it like a public square. But you have to account for the fact that we have this technology that has like progressed to this point where we have created these unique spaces and we live in them, and so many people like put their life work on them, either by like managing them or improving them, or in terms of some of them not improving them. And there has to be some steps taken to, I don't know, it's difficult to talk about the accountability of something you don't make the content of, like YouTube, like Reddit, like Twitter, because like that is in the small sense, that is what stuff we put out there is, like content.
I think there's also a different angle from the fact that like Twitter did the differences it did. Like Twitter changed when the ownership changed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to a degree understandable because the owner bought the company in order to change how it works. So it was like its own thing. But what happened here is at some point somebody decided that they are going to do everything differently. And by the time they did this, everybody, like you are saying, Reddit tries to become more social media. Everybody who wants to be on social media are already on the social media.
Yeah.
The people on Reddit are the people who don't want to be on social media. So that's where the friction comes from.
I mean, these things have this tendency of making decisions like this. I mean, to give like an example more close to home, we're on Discord right now, and Discord has been trying their hardest in the past 2 years to make their service worse by adding more bloatware to it, even though it was literally just perfectly working as a messaging and voice calling app.
I completely agree that everything Discord did over the past 3 years is bloatware. Please continue.
But the soundboard
Is a bloatware.
It's a bloatware. Yeah.
It's a loud bloatware.
You're making your point. You're making your point worse. I mean, that is the key part, is what I'm saying. We have to find a way to handle these things, because these problems, like, these are things we are kicking down the line. Like, I say we as like general humankind, because I speak for humankind, of course. Because if you remember, like after like in US after like 2016 elections, etc., like they were calling these people like Mark Zuckerberg to the Senate speak to about these topics, like relating to election and such, because these websites are so big, the information that circulates in them is incredibly relevant. Yeah. And like that was, oh my God, that was almost 10 years ago. Jesus Christ. And we still haven't really taken any steps. If anything, we have gotten worse. So, I don't know.
I think the problem is the fundamental unstep takeability of the problem. Like, because like you can't really do the thing that state asks from you. Because like, there are still 4chan in the internet. There is still, there are still chans in the internet. You can... Yeah. You can never moderate it completely. You can maybe filter what your grandmother sees to an extent, but you can never filter it completely, and people would try to go away to other places.
I agree. And I mean, this is not even like, I don't think you should even like, I don't think this is a matter of like filtering things out completely. I mean, that's the biggest problem with YouTube we have now. Like now when you say like even the smallest words, it's like, the algorithm catches and say, yeah, you do not get money from this video. So like
the biggest problem with YouTube isn't that. The biggest problem with YouTube is it is the only website that can afford to stream videos for free on that scale in the internet.
well, that is the problem with all of these biggest websites though, isn't it? Because like you said, no one in their right mind is gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna make Twitter 2.0 and I'm gonna do that from scratch, from like zero subscription model, zero like expectation of like payback in short term, and I'm gonna be able to sustain it. Not like no one is gonna do that.
Mhm.
I mean, YouTube is not profitable still, I'm pretty sure.
Fun fact:
Yeah.
Twitter became Twitter by having third-party apps. That's
Yeah.
what-
Mhm.
I mean, Reddit also
the-
became Reddit by third-party apps.
That is true.
Okay, the main another important difference in my opinion is some websites work purely on their own thing. Like in a newspaper website, the content is generated by the newspaper people and they just host it. So you can go and see what's in it, like a museum.
Mm-hmm.
And then some websites like Reddit and Twitter depend on the user content.
Yeah.
So there should also be some distinction between how these things how these things fare through the scrutiny.
That's
Like you can very well accuse a newspaper website of only showing biased information.
mm-hmm. I mean, that's also another thing you bring up that I like, because I mean, it's not the same question, but it is like when you say it's just like some websites are more niche, but these websites are like trying to be as not niche as possible and trying to be everything. And I mean, this is the problem with not just websites, but like apps too. Again, to come back to Discord, why did Discord try to have a game store in itself?
Mhm.
Please be serious. But you know, this kind of stuff, when these things try to become as much as possible, it's gonna become like as hard as possible to moderate them in any sense of the word, like you said, because it's not just content now. It's just a sea of different content that is distinct from each other.
Yeah. I guess my analogy would be like these websites are kind of trying to act or behave as a for-profit municipality. So they're kind of like a city, but they behave like a city. They have all the mix and everything, but their main goal is not the safety of the citizen, but it's just a pocket, like, you know.
I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you that the for-profit nature of, like, you can both have for-profit ventures who also put the needs of the citizen. Governments mandate, like in US, most of the cities are actually like private-ish ventures. Like they are like business. Like settlements are business. Like they try to make profits with the type of services they provide, but they work under very strict legal regulations. So the city doesn't actually try to benefit the citizens. City tries to make profit while operating under the regulations set by government in order to protect the citizens.
True.
Yeah.
So maybe something similar will happen with the internet. For-profit ventures will be forced to operate under some regulations that, like the putting users first and putting people's needs first will never be the priority of companies.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
That should be an external regulation.
Mhm. But like again, where's the regulations going to come from, especially in terms of internet? Because like it is easier to just regulate a local company. This is a service that is international, so you know.
And by the way, internet by itself is a monopoly. Like there isn't another internet. You can go out, like if you don't like where things have come with this internet, you can't just migrate to the other internet.
It's time to go back to ARPANET. But yeah.
Not sure what that would solve, but okay.
Well, it's a complicated subject. So what I'm getting is that this is not going to get resolved before we get our subreddit.
So we are gonna get a subreddit after all, eh?
Yes.
Then you should follow us on our new
No.
li-
We will create a
Oh, no.
subreddit, then put it on blackout.
and then we are gonna share cheese pictures. I like cheese pictures. I have like 30 plants. I can take pictures of each of them and we can share one of them every day.
I have like 30 plants too.
Perfect.
If you go with cheese, then we will have a Dutch community with us too.
I have, I think, like 20 or so different cheeses at my fridge, so I can do that too if you want.
I like the plants more.
So if you enjoyed this episode, please also follow us on different social media pages that we have. Soon, we hope we will be on Reddit, but now you can follow us on Twitter at _inconclusion_ or on Instagram _inconclusion_ podcast, or even on LinkedIn you can follow us and message us. Please do so. We desperately need interaction.